Hi friends, so I was just having a look online today and I noticed somebody posted this image and I wanted to share it with you, and then I want to talk a little bit about it. It says scientists estimate tree clearing in Queensland now kills 34 million animals each year. 900,000 mammals such as koalas, possums and gliders, 2.6 million birds such as cockatoos, and 30.6 million reptiles, including goannas, dragons, skinks, and geckos. That's the World Wildlife Fund. And I'm going to talk about the World Wildlife Fund in a moment. But, and it said, in Australia, most tree clearing is undertaken to create pasture for livestock. That's also the World Wildlife Fund. That's what they added to those stats. Now, so this is an interesting one because you often see this sort of thing on different people's pages and they're sort of wringing their hands. I'm just going to be very blunt about this, by the way. So a little bit of truth telling here. So people tend to, you'll often see people, particularly in recent years, because the sixth mass extinction is underway and we're in the front lines, but there's 200 species going extinct every day. But one of the greatest drivers, or possibly the greatest driver to the climate crisis now, is animal agriculture, and has been for some time. I've been aware of this for the 14 years that I've been vegan, and I'm aware that a lot of us are wringing our hands about the sixth mass extinction, but when somebody mentions veganism, suddenly our taste buds become more important than our own imminent extinction. You've seen probably in recent months one particular rant I did about this, because you see more and more groups like the Extinction Rebellion, which is another group which pretends that veganism isn't important, or that it's some kind of personal choice, in quotes, and that it really has no relevance to actually addressing the climate crisis. I don't believe we can end the climate crisis. I think my personal feeling and what the science looks like is that it's too late, really. But of course, we either roll over and die, or we continue on trying to make a difference. And if you are vegan, of course, you prevent the torture and killing of 100 animals plus every year if one vegan does that. And there's also a whole bunch of other things that one is preventing if one is vegan every single day. I'll show you another little meme that you might find interesting. Actually, two memes, because there was the largest science research to date, where it went to 114 countries, 40,000 farms, and looked at it from farm to fork, and found that the single biggest thing anybody can do is to adopt a plant-based diet. And that will address not only the climate crisis, not only the sixth mass extinction, but acidification of the oceans and a whole bunch of other things. So when I see things like, the sad situation in Queensland, which is in Australia, I live in Tasmania, and we suffer from, we have animal agriculture here, of course, and more of it is moving to Tasmania because the Australia is bursting into flames because of the climate crisis, and it's becoming untenable for dairy farmers and the like to continue, firstly finding water because of droughts, and then there's the fires and all of that. So they're moving here to Tasmania, where it's cooler, which is very unfortunate. And then they complain and of course animal agriculture, we are responsible for animal agriculture because we're not vegan. So it's not farmers' fault. They're just responding to demand for animal products. But it's unfortunate that that's what's happening in Australia. For example, the Murray-Darling River has, from what I understand, a lot of animal agriculture on it, and it takes 1,100 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of milk. and yet they had a terrible mass die-off of fish in the Murray-Darling River because the cotton industry was taking a lot of water, and so they drained off so much water that the water became toxic for the fish and they died. And that's unsustainable, of course, and it's awful for the fish because fish are sentient. But there is also animal agriculture, from what I understand, on that river as well. And they are also draining a tremendous amount of water from that river. So, you know, that is a terrible thing. It's a very, very important river. It's an important river for the fish, firstly, but it's an important river for Australia. So anyway, these are the things that everybody is, not everybody, but a lot of most of the media ignores because it's inconvenient, because they get advertising from animal agriculture, you know, all the various animal products. Large groups like, 350.org with Bill McKibben completely ignore it, and he, in fact, actually promotes animal agriculture at times, thinking that smaller animal agriculture is going to be sustainable, and that's a nonsense. This is entirely putting ethics aside too, that we don't need to torture and kill these sentient animals for their body parts or for their secretions, etc. We can easily meet all our nutrition requirements from plants and other animal sources, as many millions of vegans will attest. So we're only doing this completely for taste pleasure, really, because we don't need these animal products at all to survive. So, so people like Bill McKibben and 350.org and Greenpeace and all those other groups, they all ignore veganism, even though the science is very clear that it is a major, major, major driver of the climate crisis. And so does the Sunrise Movement. I don't see any mention from the Sunrise Movement. I don't see any mention from 350.org. In fact, they try to downplay it, which is really, really unfortunate for a group that is supposedly very dead serious about addressing this climate crisis. I mean, they're dead serious about it, from what I understand. They're into nonviolent civil disobedience, which I think is essential. But I mean, if you're serious about this issue, you cannot ignore animal agriculture. And the drivers of animal agriculture are you and me if we are not vegan. That is a fact, and the science is clear that animal agriculture is a great driver of the climate crisis. That large study, the largest study to date, indicates that very clearly. Now, we can deny science when it suits us or when it's inconvenient, but where our imminent extinction, it's coming. So we can pretend that that's not important, and we can say, oh, but capitalism is where it, that's the problem. Or that oil is the problem, fracking is the problem, and so forth. Politicians are the problem. They're all problems, sure. Capitalism is a problem, and it's inextricably linked to imperialism. So you're always going to have, oil wars and wars for resources and water, etc. You're always going to get companies privatizing water and taking away basic, rights like that to water. But capitalism isn't going to end anytime soon, unless, of course, we all stop buying into it, literally, buying into all these big corporations and such. But we can do something right now to address this, like what I mentioned in Queensland is happening. There's a lot of conservation groups in quotes, that wring their hands about all those animals that are, being affected, but they never ever mention animal agriculture. It's always somewhere in the distance or not mentioned at all, as if it's totally unimportant. I find it gobsmackingly amazing at this point in time, with our imminent extinction very, very close on the horizon. And we're still valuing our palate pleasure and what advertising dollars we get from animal products. We're still valuing that over our own survival. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, really. You couldn't make it up. And even intelligent people on the left are just pretending that's not an issue or downplaying it and saying it's some sort of personal choice and so forth. or that it's some sort of consumer thing. Well, actually, yes, it is a consumer thing, but so is a lot of things that are driven by our demand for things, right? But it's more than a consumer thing, because it's an ethical issue, because we're torturing and killing 1 trillion plus land and aquatic animals for trivial reasons of mostly palate pleasure. And in the process, we are destroying not only our home, but their home. It's as much their home as it is our home. And we're driving world hunger. Look into it. We're driving world hunger with this. We're driving floods and droughts and fires and all sorts of things as a result of our consumption of animal products, because we're not vegan. All the things that go with the climate crisis, that's what we're helping to drive. And we're also torturing and killing sentient animals, just like the dogs and cats whom we love, who love life just like we do and do not want to die. So if we are serious about this, if we are serious and we do want to save the planet, as we say, and if we don't want to see all these non-human animals, these species going extinct every single day, and really they have their own reasons for living. It's not because we shouldn't be caring about them because we just want to look at them, right? We shouldn't be just worried about the ones that we fetishize. That's speciesist. We should be caring about all of them, including the ones on our plates and the ones on our backs, the ones that we use every day, all the millions and millions and millions, the hundreds of millions of animals that we torture and kill for mostly unnecessary experiments that could be replaced with something else, alternative methods, but we don't, because we view animals as property. This mindset that animals are property and resources, that's also driving all these other discriminations, because when you see a vulnerable group, you think, oh, I can exploit that group. We do it to humans and we do it to non-humans. So all these issues are interrelated. All the issues that we're talking about, the racism, the imperialism and so forth, it's all interrelated with veganism. So we have to care about this issue as much as we care about anti-war issues and so forth. If we really are for justice and non-violence, then we have to care about this issue, about veganism. And that means we have to go vegan, which is very easy, by the way. It's not difficult. And we encourage others to do so. We educate others to do so in non-violent ways. We don't need to show them gory pictures of animals being tortured. If you want to find that, and that's happening every second of every day in slaughterhouses all around the world and in farms, the happy farms and the industrialized farms, which are becoming, they're the free-range farms. The free-range farms are the big industrialized windowless sheds. All the torture that we see, it's all happening, the torture and killing on all these farms, and the kidnapping of their young, and the brutalization of those animals and so forth, and the taking away of their life. It's all happening right now, and we're responsible. It's not the farmers that are responsible. It's not the corporations that are responsible. It's not capitalism that's responsible. We are responsible for all that death and torture and destruction, including the climate crisis, if we are not vegan. I'm sorry if that's inconvenient for some people to hear, and I'm sorry if that throws people into a spin and they suddenly sort of start hurling insults at the messenger. But the science is clear, and you can hurl insults at me, but that doesn't change the science. It doesn't change the science. So it also doesn't change the fact that we don't have a right to use these sentient animals as resources. It doesn't change that fact. And when I talk about the World Wildlife Fund and like Extinction Rebellion ignores veganism, it's a good idea to have a nonviolent civil disobedient movement. I think it's essential at this point. As Chris Hedges said, we have to stop the machine. There's no point in trying to reason with the machine anymore. We have to stop it. If you have somebody fracking whatever in an area and they won't stop it, you start to drive cars, take out the battery and walk away. Old bombs and leave the cars, to block entrances. We have to get into non-violent civil disobedience at this point, because the days of petitions and letter writing and pleading to politicians and pleading to the better ethics of these people is finished. It was finished a while ago, a long time ago, really. But it's time now for non-violent civil disobedience. But one way that's actually civil disobedience is to actually refuse to refuse to be a part of this torturous, exploitative, and immoral thing of immoral participation in the killing of sentient animals for completely trivial and unnecessary reasons, of mostly palate pleasure, because that's all it is. And a vegan diet is absolutely delicious. And we don't need these animal products at all. We do not. The irony of the World Wildlife Fund and pretty much all these conservation groups is that the World Wildlife Fund was started by trophy hunters. And they actually promote killing of wildlife. And I don't like the word wildlife because that assumes that these are animals that are not domesticated, they're out there in the wild. This is all their home. This is their home too. They're not wild. They're just sentient animals living their life on their planet. And we are constantly taking away their land and killing them and trapping them. I mean, there's millions and millions of animals that are tortured and trapped and killed and drowned every year to protect livestock, in quotes, protect livestock. Millions and millions of them. There's all sorts of animals that we fetishize that are killed in the oceans. Dolphins and whales, hundreds of thousands of them. Dolphins, whales, and all seals and all sorts of animals. Have a look at the upcoming documentary Seaspiracy. It's made by the same people who made Cowspiracy. Check that one out too. But the upcoming documentary Seaspiracy, go and have a look at their Instagram page. It's a real eye-opener. The amount of devastation to aquatic animals that we fetishize is horrendous, and all the other animals that are equally morally important, the aquatic animals, it's horrendous. We have to stop that. Aquatic animals are sentient too. There are no levels of sentient. You're either sentient or you're not. And the World Wildlife Fund, let me read you something about the World Wildlife Fund. And this is sort of an indication of other so-called conservation groups, who, by the way, all ignore veganism. And of course, why wouldn't they? Like this particular one, why wouldn't they ignore veganism? Because they're right into the trophy hunting and supporting it in a way. So in 2009, the World Wildlife Fund sent a letter to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in support of limited managed hunting of black rhinos in Namibia. That's pretty fabulous, isn't it? The World Wildlife Fund believes that sport hunting of Namibia's black rhino population will strongly contribute to the enhancement of the survival of the species, end quote. The group wrote, citing the generation of income for conservation and the removal of post-breeding males. I love that. Generation of income for conservation. So they're killing animals to generate funds for conservation of other animals. That's funny. So anyway, the World Wildlife Fund gives special meaning to the word quote-unquote conservation. The organization, founded in 1961 by a group of wealthy trophy hunters, including Prince Philip. And that's from protectwildlifeblog.com. I'm not endorsing that article or that Protect Wildlife blog, because I bet you they're not vegan either. But they have a picture of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth with a group of people, and there's a dead tiger on the ground laying in front of them. That's what Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth do for fun. Kill animals, kill wild animals, wild animals, kill tigers and whatever else. And there's a whole big industry of trophy hunting. People pay hundreds of thousands of dollars so they can kill giraffes and kill lions and so forth. It's a big business. And, and as sad as that is to see that, and you often see people freak out and go on and on about, the gorilla that was killed, or the Harambe the gorilla, although he was killed in a zoo, he was in a prison and somebody killed him because a child fell into the den or whatever. Or you hear about Cecil the lion, that was shot, and everybody freaked out about that. The thing is, animal agriculture is responsible for a lot of the killing of these so-called wild animals. And, the fishing industry, which we're responsible for if we're not vegan, is also responsible for a lot of the killings of, there's 300,000, I think, animals are killed in these abandoned fishing nets. There's lots and lots of fishing nets just floating around from these trawlers. When we're wringing our hands about these animals we fetishize, like lions, etc., there are animals that are exactly the same. They have exactly the same sentience, and we've decided that they are animals that we've domesticated and we are eating and wearing and using. But they have no less sentience than lions and tigers or us, and they're no less morally important. The only place that we've decided that they're less important is in our minds, and that's because it's convenient. We've decided we can oppress those animals, and then we can exploit them and we can kill them and take their young and everything because we can. And that's the same sort of attitude we have when, Western allies and US empire go around trying to destroy countries and take them over and overthrow their governments because they can, because we can. That colonialist, imperialist attitude is the same kind of attitude we have in many ways towards animals. It can be comparable to how we treat non-human animals on this planet. Because we can, we exploit them, we imprison them, we use them for entertainment and so forth. We experiment on them because we can. Do you see it's comparable, right? That same attitude. And that's the attitude we have to rid ourselves of before we go extinct. Wouldn't that be nice if we actually all became vegan before we went extinct? I would like to see that, a vegan planet before we went extinct. A bit of civilization, actual civilization. Anyway, that was really all I wanted to talk about. I just saw that thing and I thought, wow, that's really unfortunate that what was happening in Queensland. I didn't know the extent of it. Of course, I knew animal agriculture. The amount of land that would be left if we didn't have animal agriculture is literally large continents. And let me show you this meme to show you how many continents would be available to grow food. And we could still actually, even with the land that's left, we could grow enough food for the world. It's astonishing. And if you're not shocked by that meme, this meme right here, then I don't know what it would take. And that's a science-based, that's from the same study of 114 countries, 40,000 farms from farm to fork, the latest, largest study to date on animal agriculture. And what did they say? They said adopting a plant-based diet is the single most important thing you can do to address the climate crisis, the 6 mass extinction, acidifications of the oceans, and so forth. So can we stop being in denial of science? Can we? This isn't something that vegans pulled out of the air. It's not by vegans, it's not funded by vegans or anything, that study. It's a real scientific study in science, in the journals of science, a science journal. And we need to take notice of that. But most importantly, we need to stop using animals, stop viewing them. Just because they're different, just because they're not like us, does not mean they are lesser. That's the most important thing I'd like us to take from this. If we claim to care about animals, and most of us do, because we live with dogs and cats whom we love and consider family members, no difference to all the animals we eat, wear and use. If we claim that they're morally important, which we do, then we must be vegan. So thanks so much for watching. Please click the like button if you like the content. Please leave comments if you wish. Please make them civil. I prefer it if it's civil. And please subscribe and click the notifications bell. Otherwise, you don't receive notifications when I drop a video. So thanks so much for watching. My name's Trisha Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time. Bye for now.